Ricardo was born in London, England in 1772 into a Sephardic Jewish family. His family arrived and settled in England via Portugal and the Netherlands. His last name Ricardo originated from Portugal. Influenced by his father who was a stock dealer, he started to work in the securities business at the age of 14. He severed his relationship with his father because he married a Christian. He earned a huge fortune as a broker for stock and bond transactions. In 1799, he read Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations. He then devoted 10 years of his life to economic research to develop Smith's labor theory of value. He also laid the foundation for the theory of distribution through differential rent. Most of all, he established the theory of comparative advantage which supports free trade. It was his greatest achievement. Portugal at that time was able to produce wine and cloth more cheaply than Britain. Suppose that in England 100 workers are required to produce 1 yard of cloth and 120 workers are required for 1 bottle of wine. In Portugal, 90 workers are required for producing 1 yard of cloth and 80 workers are required for 1 bottle of wine. Portugal has an absolute advantage as it can produce both items more cheaply than Britain. According to Smith's theory of absolute advantage, they don't need to trade in this situation. But Ricardo claims that both Portugal and Britain would increase their profits if each specializes in one product and trade with the other. Let's compare the relative values of cloth and wine based on the number of workers. In Britain, the price of 1 yard of cloth is relatively cheaper compared to Portugal. When a country's product is relatively cheaper than another country, it is called comparative advantage. If Britain specializes in cloth while Portugal in wine, they can produce more of them. Then they can trade with each other in British cloth and Portuguese wine. And it will be a win-win situation. When all 220 workers are mobilized to produce cloth in Britain, they can make 2.2 yards in total. Portugal can produce 2.1 bottles of wine with 170 workers. Let's then trade 1 yard of cloth made in Britain with 1 bottle of wine made in Portugal. The trade will result in Britain having 1.2 yards of cloth and a bottle of wine while Portugal having 1 yard of cloth and 1.1 bottles of wine. With this trade, England will be able to get an extra 0.2 yard of cloth and Portugal will get an extra 0.1 bottle of wine. If they increase their trade volumes, both could increase their profits. When they produce more of the goods in which they have comparative advantages and then trade, their profits increase. This is Ricardo's theory of comparative advantage. Ricardo's theory of comparative advantage gave the British Empire confidence in the benefits of free trade. They aggressively implemented free trade policies which laid the foundation for creating the empire where the sun never sets. Clearly, there are limits to Ricardo's theory of comparative advantage. The theory assumes that there are only 2 countries and 2 products. It is nonetheless quite valuable as it shows that free trade clearly brings more benefits than protective trade. His theory influenced many other scholars like Piero Sraffa and others, who advocated the theory of imperfect competition. The Neo-Ricardian school of economics was later developed by followers of Ricardo. Inspired by his theory of comparative advantage, the Heckscher-Ohlin theorem was further developed. Ricardo retired from Parliament in 1823 due to illness and died relatively young in the same year.
Bestseller of Economics. Principles of Economics Graphic Edition.